Did you know that 97% of people with celiac disease are undiagnosed? That's almost 3 million people, just in America alone. And then there's another 20 million people that suffer from gluten sensitivity aside from celiac disease. So just imagine how many of those go undiagnosed. I was one of those people for years. I actually never really knew that there was a gluten sensitivity outside of celiac disease, and I figured if I'd been eating it my whole life without dying that there's no way I could be intolerant to it. After a doctor compared the symptoms I was experiencing with those of gluten intolerance, I realized just how much the food I was eating was causing a lot of my health issues. You never know how gluten might be affecting you, and this channel is all about helping you cut it out in the easiest way possible. But before we jump in, welcome to Gluten Free. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to this channel so you can be the first to know about new content I post. And if you're still hungry for more, be sure to follow our blog and sign up to receive our monthly newsletter. For months on end, I slept with a garbage can next to my bed every night because every morning that I woke up, the first thing I thought I was going to do was get sick. The thought of food made me feel so nauseous, but I thought having an empty stomach would make everything worse. So I force-fed myself every day, knowing it was going to make me feel sick and exhausted immediately after I ate it. One day my roommate even found me asleep at the kitchen table because I'd fallen asleep in the middle of eating my breakfast. I was drinking way more caffeine than any 19-year-old should have, and even though I was drinking it all day, I was still exhausted. I was drinking it simply to keep my eyes open and get through my daily routines. No matter how much sleep I had the night before, it still seemed like I was always exhausted. I already had a pretty small frame, but I was losing weight in a way that I should not have. But at the same time, I looked bigger than I was because of all the constant bloating. It was getting harder and harder to do my schoolwork. With the constant brain fog and always being tired, it seemed like my grades just kept slipping and slipping, and there was nothing I could do to get a hold on them. I felt more depressed and anxious than I ever had. It was getting harder and harder to do simple tasks because I either couldn't find the energy to do it, or I was bloating so much that it was just painful to even stand up. I never would have thought that a food intolerance would show symptoms in those ways. I always assumed that if you were intolerant to a food that it would make you puke if you ate it, or give you a rash, or make it hard to breathe. So all the symptoms that I had definitely didn't align with the food intolerance in my head. Like, I thought it was just normal to bloat a lot after you ate, and I didn't really realize that this was an issue until it became very, very painful. And it never would have occurred to me that the brain fog and fatigue that I was experiencing often was a result of the food that I was putting into my body. And this was probably a bigger issue for me than most people since my skin is prone to acne, but I noticed a drastic decline in my acne after a few months of quitting gluten. I also noticed that if I accidentally ate some, I would probably have a new small breakout a day or two later. Again, I thought all of these things were normal things to happen to young adults, and especially ones in college. A lot of the symptoms I was experiencing I would just push off as stress and reason that that was how my body was handling it. But that wasn't the case at all. So you might be wondering right now, how can I differentiate between a stress or anxiety pain and those with the food intolerance pain? My best answer, go talk to your doctor. And if you feel that the answers you got weren't getting to the bottom of things, go get a second opinion somewhere else. I had to see about 4 doctors for my issues before the words gluten sensitivity were mentioned. Abdominal pain is the most common symptom that people with gluten sensitivity of any kind experience. I think this is what made it so difficult for me to realize that it was something other than just not feeling well. Because then I just thought it was due to the anxiety or something else beyond my control. My doctors actually told me that I very well could have been getting anxiety from having undiagnosed pain all the time, which in result could have made the stomach aches worse. Actually, if you have any conditions already that can be a sign of food intolerance, eating those foods can actually make those conditions much worse. For example, I've had eczema for as long as I can remember, but when I was younger, it was just a few patches here and there. They would come and go, and they were relatively unnoticeable. But later on in life, I noticed that when I was eating gluten, my eczema would flare up way more. I'm not a doctor, and I'm definitely not trying to diagnose you with anything, but if these experiences sound similar to ones of your own, you might not be out of options. Even if you don't think that you have a gluten intolerance or a sensitivity to gluten at all, cutting it out or just cutting back on it a little bit can have similar benefits to your life. I was 19 and a junior in college living on my own when I began this transition. Honestly, I just thought that I would cut back on it as much as I could. I didn't think I was capable of completely getting rid of it from my diet. I didn't think I'd be able to afford it for one. And I also thought that I would just miss the food too much and would just have to have it sometimes. But luckily for me, neither of those were the case. I spent about the same amount on groceries as I did before, but maybe like slightly higher. But I realized I did save a lot of money on going out because, one, there's not as many gluten-free options in chain restaurants and fast food. And also I just preferred cooking more because I knew all the ingredients that I was putting into it, and I gotta make it exactly how I liked. Also, I don't miss the taste of gluten at all. All of the foods that I was eating a lot, like bread and pasta, can easily be imitated and taste exactly the same as the normal version. And for all the other foods that aren't as easy to imitate, which is basically all fried food, I don't miss it at all. I've learned that I prefer the baked or grilled versions of meals instead of the fried, and my stomach thanks me for it. There are countless ways that my life has improved since getting gluten out of my life. If you want to see how easy and possible it is to do, subscribe to my channel to get more videos on how to shop, meal prep, dine out, drink, and so much more, all while on a budget. And hopefully you will see the same benefits I did while on this journey. Thanks for watching!